name is Yasser Bashir, Assistant Chief with the Houston Police Department. And with me, I have Captain Zia from Homicide Division, and I also have Lieutenant Barber from Northwest Division. So at the moment, we are in the 7000 block of Hammerly Road on an officer-involved shooting incident. I'm going to briefly give you an overview of what I have, and I'll provide you more information that I've gathered so far. We have one suspect who is deceased, and no officers were injured, and there is no additional threat to the community. So this incident actually started early in the morning around 8:30 when a security officer called HPD regarding the suspect because the suspect had a bat and he was swinging and charging toward the security officer. This happened around 8:30 in the morning in the 7800 block of Long Point. The security guard discharged his CED, or commonly known as a taser, and which had no impact on the suspect. The suspect left the location. HPD officers arrived and they did a report. And they began to look for the individual, but were not able to locate him. Later on today, around 3 o'clock, the same security guard called the police again on the same suspect. So as the officers were on their way, there were two-man unit. This happened right shortly after 3 o'clock. As they were on their way, they located the suspect on Wirt Road, walking in a strip center. They got out of the car, and they noticed that he had a bat in his hand, and he was being aggressive toward the officer with the bat. The officer gave him verbal commands to put it down in English and in Spanish multiple times. At some certain points, he was threatening the officer with the bat. The officer two officers discharged the tasers, but it had no impact. The suspect continued to walk toward Hammerly, and he crossed Hammerly, and then he reached, there's a bus stop right behind my back. He got to that point, and he saw what appeared to be a chunk of concrete, and he picked it up and started threatening the officers with the concrete. And one of the officers at that point discharged his weapon more than once and struck the suspect. Immediately after that, the officers began to provide medical attention, and then later on, the suspect was pronounced deceased at the location. The suspect is, we believe he's a Hispanic male in his 50s, and the officer who discharged his weapon, he has 3 years on at the department, and he will be placed on administrative duties, and his body-worn camera will be released within 30 days. As you can see, this is a very sad event, and we're going to make sure that this incident is investigated thoroughly. At the moment, we have homicide, internal affairs, as well as the district attorney's office conducting independent investigations. That's all I have at the moment. Now I'll make myself available for any questions that you may have.
You said that the officers did discharge the tasers.
Yes, they did multiple times.
And they had no effect?
Because the suspect had a heavy jacket, and that's one of the reasons I believe they did not have any impact.
Was he saying anything to the officers whenever this happened? I knew that they told him to drop the bat. Did he respond to anything else, you know?
He didn't comply with their officer's command, and the officers continuously gave him commands in English and in Spanish.
You said that the security officer called at a different location. What was that location?
No, in the 7000 block of Long Point, he called in the morning, and then he called again in the afternoon. And both times, the suspect had a bat.
Is this a mental case? It looks kind of like he might have the problem.
We don't know, but that will be part of the investigation.
Did you say he was lunging at them with the concrete, or just the bat?
He threatened the officers with the. At some points, he threatened the officers with the bat, and then once he crossed over Hammerly, he picked up the chunk of concrete. Then he threatened the officers with that object.
Was there any other alternative besides shooting him?
The officers in this incident gave him multiple commands, and they encountered the suspect, and they walked with him for crossing the street and still gave him verbal commands to put the bat down.
Say that you guys want to, you guys shoot somebody, and there's so many vehicles and so many people around.
Every case is different. In this case, the traffic wasn't that heavy, I'm assuming, and we also had vigilant, probably the citizens, and they were paying attention to what was going on at the intersection as they crossed the intersection. So but you know, we always want to make sure the scene is safe for us to take any kind of action.
Last question. Chief, this is like fourth officer-involved shooting within the last 2 weeks. What are your thoughts? Why are we seeing a little bit of a spike?
All those cases that the four, they're still under investigation, so each case is unique on its own. But I do want to say that, you know, our officers are you know, encountering these kind of events where they have to use deadly force. This just points out that officers are, you know, this very difficult job for us to do when we encounter somebody using, you know, weapons and threatening the officers.
Was it because people are more aggressive towards the officers, or?
As I mentioned, every case is different, and I don't want to comment on ongoing investigations. And I don't want to generalize either.
Your name and your title?
Yasser Bashir, Assistant Chief with the Houston Police Department. Thank you.
There's nobody that had it, right?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Streets and a lot of officers.